make sure that you all can see my screen that I'm sharing. Just give me a head shake if you can see the welcome. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead. We'll get started and do a little bit of introducing first. I'm Beth Shepard. I'm the Director of Special Education here in the district. I also have a counterpart. His name is Justin Toby, and he is the Assistant Director of Special Education. And we are district administration for all things that are related to student services. So special education needs, Section 504 plans, response to intervention. Our main focus is to assist teachers and families and students in navigating the IEP process and the special education process. It is a daunting process for families. It's very convoluted and there's lots of layers to things. And so we're here to help support our families and walk alongside them, with this journey that they're on with their children. If you have any questions or thoughts or things that you feel like you just need clarification for, please reach out to us. A lot of people don't know that we're here and that we exist and that we have a job, and it's to problem solve and support our teachers and families and students. And so I'm always happy to meet with families and talk with them and carve out time during my day to make this journey a little bit easier for everyone that's involved. So some of the things that we're going to cover today from a perspective of the IEP process are, things that maybe parents or guardians can do ahead of the case conference committee meeting. And then also we'll transition into things that maybe you can expect during a case conference meeting, and then also some follow-up things that you can do after the meeting. And really the purpose of the presentation is just to make you as families supporting students who have disabilities, making you feel better about the process and more confident, and to help you become a contributing member to the case conference committee and not feel like you're there to just listen, because that's not really the case. You're there to participate and be a part of the process. So just a few things about before the meeting. You should receive an invitation to your case conference ahead of the meeting. So if that's not happening now and you're not receiving that notice of case conference that lists the individuals that will be attending, please reach out to your teachers of record and let them know that you would like to have that list ahead of time. They should be sending it either a paper copy or an email copy to families ahead of time, just so that you know who to anticipate sitting around the table with you. Our annual case conferences, well, any of our case conferences really, typically are in person, but we do offer virtual case conferences for families who, just need to squeeze in a meeting over lunch, or it's just more convenient because of travel for them to be virtual during those meetings. So we do offer both formats. As a family, you can give permission for excusal for staff members. So you may see on your notice of meeting that there is a couple of check boxes asking to excuse participants from all of the meeting or a portion of the case conference meeting. Typically, this is a general education teacher who maybe is going to participate for the first, portion of the meeting covering current present levels, and then we'll ask if it's okay for them to return to their classroom. A lot of families are fine with this. They say, sure, absolutely, that's great. And then we have other families that really feel like during this case conference committee process that it's important for all of the members to attend and participate during the entire meeting, which is completely your right as a family to ask. And so all that I ask is ahead of time, you let us know that you would like all of the participants to stay for the entire duration of the case conference, so that we can provide ample coverage and make sure that classrooms are covered and schedules are covered while that case conference is happening. So if you could just give us a heads up that you want the whole team to stay the whole time, we're more than happy to do that. And then as a family, you're able to invite whomever you'd like to attend that meeting with you as a support or as an advocate. So you don't need our permission to bring someone with you. It's your right to have someone attend alongside you. And then this is a link to something that's called Navigating the Course. And I will post this on our district website so that you have access to it in the future. But Navigating the Course is a parent's guide to Article 7. Article 7 is Indiana law surrounding special education. And it's a really in-depth several hundred page, I feel like, document reviewing the laws surrounding special education students. Navigating the Course is a parent guide, a parent companion to Article 7. So it's more digestible. It's not written in such legalese. I think it's easier to understand. And if you haven't had the opportunity to look at Navigating the Course, it's a really great resource for you as a family to understand what your rights as a parent of a student with disabilities is. Some more things before the meeting. You have, and I encourage you to, if you're not already, you can request a draft copy of the IEP to be provided with ample time for you to review that document prior to the case conference. There shouldn't really be surprises when you're sitting down at a case conference. It shouldn't be a gotcha, or we're going to bring up something that you've never heard before. And we don't want you to feel that way. So I really just recommend that you request that draft copy ahead of time. This will allow you to look through the document and not feel like, hey, I'm reading and trying to listen at the same time to this information that, is rather new to me. Instead, you'll have time to organize your thoughts. You can write notes on the document. You can write questions and concerns within the draft document that they'll be following along. So you'll know, hey, this is the time that I need to bring up this question, or this is the time that I need to bring up this concern. Oh, here's the information that I really wanted to talk about within the document. We will ask families to share student strengths and successes. So come to the conference with an idea of what some relevant student strengths are for your child related to school, or strengths that you just feel like are beneficial to them as a human being. And then also prepare a vision statement. So we do ask our families to provide a long-term or short-term vision for your students. So it doesn't have to be multi-paragraphs, although some people do provide us with very lengthy, beautiful vision statements that we copy and paste. It could just be, I want my student to be happy and healthy and a productive member of society. So it doesn't have to be something that is too in-depth, but we will ask for that. And some families just feel sometimes put on the spot when we ask that question. Also prepare a statement of concerns that you would like noted in the IEP. Again, jot those down. We're going to ask you what your concerns are. And again, it does sometimes feel like we're putting you on the spot with that, but having them prepared ahead of time might also be an easier way for you to share that information within the case conference. A lot of times it feels maybe a little intimidating for families who are sitting around the table with multiple teachers and therapists, and they just feel like, maybe this isn't the time for me to share concerns. If you have them ahead of time, perhaps you wouldn't feel so nervous to be able to read that statement and share it with the team. Also, you can look to state standards so that you know what's coming up the following school year and what those anticipated standards or goals or academic expectations might be. And it will help you when we're talking about creating student goals. And then lastly, we want to review, and we're going to talk about accommodations and standardized statewide assessment accommodations within the case conference committee process. So if you have time, just again, I linked the state standards here for you. Just take a peek at that. But then we also have this visual that is just a framework for standardized statewide testing for you to become familiar with what some of the accommodations are available to students that have IEPs. And so it isn't a checklist where we say like everybody gets all of these if it's appropriate for the student and we all agree. But some families don't even know what accommodations are actually out there and available. And so we just want to make sure that you have access to that, that you've seen it before, and that you know what to request for your student. If there's something like extended time or something like sound amplification that would really benefit your child, then we definitely want to make sure that we get that into their accommodations if it's not in there already. Again, we do have a link here that will take you to the accessibility and accommodations guide. It's a lengthy document, but it's just for transparency and to make you aware that these accommodations are out there and that there's some, it may be beneficial to have a conversation surrounding which accommodations are the most appropriate for your student. Are there any questions so far? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, just is there any kind of worst case scenario planning happening? Because just from research, IEP is essentially funded through the Department of Education. So as there essentially backups in the town of Plainfield, Indianapolis, state of Indiana, before you get all the way up to federal levels for that, so that if needed for our students
You mean
past
long-term,
the
like if
next year.
let's imagine
Yeah.
that the federal Department of Education is no longer
Yep.
functioning in its current capacity. Yeah, so I've
Yep.
never lived in a world without a federal Department of Education, or I've never taught in a world without a federal Department of Education. So it's really hard for me to anticipate what those changes might look like. I anticipate that the funding will remain in place, but that funding will be allocated to states.
Okay.
And our state department of the IDOE, our state Department of Education, isn't going away. So on a daily basis, I have very little contact with our federal Department of Education unless it's related to writing grants or submitting information that they're requesting data-wise. But I do work quite closely with the Indiana Department of Education. So even if the federal Department of Education weren't functioning in its current capacity, I've not heard any changes to how the Indiana Department of Education is going to operate. And so that is just something that, as we learn more, we will, we'll know what those changes are. But right now, I don't anticipate that our daily functioning is going to be super impacted, except the way in which we apply for those federal funds.
Okay. That was my
Okay.
main question of
Okay.
just what would change day to day and sort of what can be projected long term.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it's
thank
really
you.
hard for me to project that out, not having ever taught or been an educator without a federal Department of Education. But again, my closest relationship to Department of Ed is our state, our state Department of Education.
And yeah, just because I know Plainfield's already did a lot of research before I bought a house here. They already put so much resources into their kids. I'd imagine that they would back them up no matter what happened, but
Absolutely. We'll make sure our kids are getting
worth a
served.
question.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Sarah. Are there any other questions before I move to the next slide? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. And
Go
then
ahead.
should we have already gotten the invitation to the date for it, or is that something we should be
Yeah,
anticipating?
so usually as a classroom teacher, I would send them out the month of the case conference. And some teachers, have a lot of case conferences in, let's say, August or September. So they'll send out the ones at the beginning of September kind of closer and the ones at the end a little bit later in the month. So it should be probably within 2 weeks or a week before the case conference, but I wouldn't anticipate if you had a case conference in April that you've already received notice of that meeting.
That was just what I was worried as if I missed something, because yes, it is
Yeah.
April.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank
Okay.
you.
No problem. So something else for you to remember as a family is that you can always ask to meet informally to discuss your concerns and ideas outside of or ahead of case conference to help prepare you for the meeting. So I have lots of families that will say, you know what, I just want to get this off my chest. I want to talk it out. I don't want any surprises when we come to case conference. I have these questions that I really want answered. I would really like to know these thoughts, and I want to share this idea and maybe plan for this certain thing. And we will just sit down and staff together. Staff meaning the school and the family will talk out those questions and concerns and review those ideas ahead of time, not as a part of the formal case conference, just as like a parent meeting, so that when we get to case conference, all of those questions have been answered, any hiccups have been addressed, any problems or concerns have been anticipated, and we have solutions to be able to offer during case conference. So you are more than welcome to ask to meet with your special education teacher of record and other team members ahead of case conference, so that again, if you're worried that it's going to be if it's going to be a difficult time, this is just another way to kind of ease that worry for you. So a few things to consider during case conference. When you sit down to the table, you should be offered a copy of your procedural safeguards. There are a few meetings where this isn't. It doesn't have to be offered every single time. It doesn't have to be offered at a revision. There are other things, other instances where you don't have to receive a copy, but by and large, our teachers are kind of conditioned just to hand parents a copy of their procedural safeguards. And those are really what your parent rights are. So it's a summary, again, of Article 7 and what your protections are as a family and as a parent of a student with a disability. I'm not handing those to you to say, hey, you should read that. I'm getting ready to violate your rights. I'm handing them to you so you're informed. And we want to make sure that you have that copy and you know what your rights are and what you can do if you disagree with the outcome of a case conference committee meeting. So you should be offered those, and then usually there's a form that we offer alongside those procedural safeguards that just will ask you to sign, just acknowledging that we offered you those procedural safeguards. This should already be happening, but if it's not already happening, you can ask for introductions at the table and just say, you know, I'm not sure who everyone is. Can we go around and get those introductions done? And then make sure to request that you have access and other team members have access to a draft copy of the IEP, or that the IEP is being presented on a screen so that you can follow along with the meeting. We tell our teachers this and we tell our principals this, but you shouldn't be sitting at the table without knowledge of what is being covered and without being able to follow along with the meeting. And so make sure that you ask for that draft copy or for that presentation on the screen. Any questions about this screen? Okay. So as you're meeting and we're moving through that case conference process, I always tell all of the team members to really make sure that you stay focused on keeping the student at the center of the conversation, and that everybody is focused on making decisions that are best for students and not decisions that are best for teachers or best for just the parent, but right, what's best for my kid and what's best for my student. And if we can keep a focus on that, then things are going to go really smoothly. Yeah, Caitlin, it is. I just saw that. That's one of my first recommendations that I make, is to ask for that draft copy ahead of time within reason. So I think if your meeting is like on a Tuesday and you're like, hey, can I have it the Friday before so that I have the weekend to look it over? I think that's really reasonable. But if you're like, I need it a month ahead of time, that's probably not super reasonable. So coming up with a time frame that works for you so that you have a few days to look it over, to make notes. Our teachers have, you know, lots of kids on their caseload, so they're planning for other case conferences as well. So just giving them a heads up that you want that draft and then asking them for it like within 24, 48 hours, whatever that is. Sarah, it is not a draft copy, would be like a paper copy of the IEP. Yeah. Also, during that annual case review meeting, ask for clarification on things. We're going to report things like standardized test scores, and we're going to use a lot of acronyms and code speak because this is what we do every day and we talk about it all the time. And so we know what we're talking about, but a lot of times our families don't know, and they just let us keep talking at them and using these acronyms that they might not understand, or using what I call code speak, special education code speak. And you might not know what that is. And I really empower you to say, hey, I'm not sure what that term is, or hey, I don't know what you're referring to. Can you clarify? You're not going to sound silly. In fact, like, I'm happy when families ask those questions, because then I know that you're truly informed and that you truly understand the document that we're talking about. So if you see something or hear something that you don't understand or doesn't make sense to you, please ask for that clarification. You're allowed to ask clarifying questions about goals, about the measurements that are being used and the criteria for meeting that goal. What does it look like when the student is successful and has met that goal? You should ask clarifying questions about data collection and also about what services really look like. So on the provisions page, you'll see a list of services that your student is receiving. And sometimes it'll say like a push-in service or a pull-out service or a consultation service, or, aids and supports. And so you might not know exactly what that looks like. And for you to say, hey, can you clarify what reading push-in for 30 minutes looks like? Like, what's my student doing during that time? And what is staff doing to support my student during that time? Just so you have a better understanding of what those services really look like for your student. And the other thing that I really ask for our families when you're attending case conference meetings is to come to the table. And I know it's really hard, but if you can come to the table and be just a little bit vulnerable with the team and share some of your struggles that are happening. We all have struggles with our children. We all have struggles with with our kids in the home setting for various reasons. But if you can come to the table and say, hey, this is making my life really difficult, whatever this is there something that we can do about it? So like, for example, homework, like, hey, my kid is really struggling with homework and we're doing it, 2 hours a night, and we're crying and we can't get it done and it's always late. And, we really just would like to share that and we need some relief. We might not be able to say, hey, we're going to take homework away completely, but we might be able to problem solve, like, no kid should be doing 2 hours of homework a night. So what can we do to make this better for your student? What is fixed and has to be completed, and what is flexible? Is it okay if we just write 20 minutes at the top and circle it and say, hey, we spent 20 minutes on this and this is the best that my kid could do for this time? But we did it and we attempted and we tried. So just having those conversations and being vulnerable about the things that are happening that are causing you difficulty that's related to school in your home setting, we'd be more than happy to sit down and help problem solve that with you. Any questions about that? Okay. So again, something to remember is that at any time during the meeting, you can request to table the meeting. And that means like, hey, I want to stop the meeting right now and just reconvene it at another time, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed or surprised or emotional or uncomfortable, or you disagree with something, but you're not sure how to share that. You can just say like, hey, I'd really like to pause the meeting and table it and come back to the table at a later date. And that would give you the opportunity then to maybe reach out and get some of those concerns off your chest and some things addressed prior to coming back to the table. So you don't have to like white knuckle it through. If it's a really bad experience for you, we don't want it to be a bad experience. You're able to say, hey, I'd like to take a break and come back at a later time. So after the meeting, a few things for follow-up. Set a reconvene date if you have tabled that meeting. So everybody get their calendars out and look, and let's get another meeting on the books. Follow up with the team as a reminder, hey, I have these 4 or 5 questions that are concerns for me, and I really want them addressed when we meet again next time. Ask if there's another person that you need to contact. So it doesn't seem like maybe we're problem solving very well. Is there another person that can be introduced into this team that might be able to help us problem solve further? It is shared responsibility for our parent and our team to reach out regarding task completion. So we shouldn't be, the only one that's, trying to get a follow-up date, and you shouldn't be the only party that's trying to get a follow-up date or questions answered. It really needs to be a joint effort to make this a smooth process for everybody. And then if you disagree with the outcomes of meetings, know who you can contact and share your concerns with. And that's me and Mr. Toby. So if you end a meeting and you're like, this just went really poorly, and no matter what the problem solving has been, I couldn't get my issues resolved at the building level, you can reach out to me and I can enter that conversation and see what problem solving that, I can do with the building and I can do with you as a family as well. And then when you get your final copy, it's called a proposed finalized copy of your IEP. Take a look at that document. And then if you've saved that draft copy from the very beginning of the meeting, when you first got that draft copy, make sure that you kind of flip through and you've checked that, all of the things that you wanted addressed, that you noted in that draft copy, that they had been addressed in that proposed finalized copy. And if they're not, call someone so we can get it fixed. Just another kind of concept that is a little bit foreign to families. It's this concept of early implementation. So at your initial case conference, that means the very first case conference in which your student became eligible for special education services, you sign permission to implement an IEP, and we can't start services without that implementation, without you agreeing to start special ed services. So we can't put it into place, we can't serve the student, we can't work on goals until we get parent permission to do that. Every subsequent IEP meeting, the law says that you've already given permission for special ed services. And so the caveat to that is we will finish the meeting and we will give you a proposed finalized IEP. And the last page does have a signature spot on it. That signature spot isn't, I'm agreeing to this IEP, you can put it into place. That signature spot is saying, I have 10 days. It's my right to have 10 days to look over this IEP and make sure that it's what I want, and to make sure that it is thorough and it meets what we talked about and it's the spirit of the case conference. If you sign that, you're waiving your right to those 10 days. So you're not signing permission, you're signing to waive your right to 10 days to review that IEP. And you're saying, hey, I want to implement this right away. So there are particular circumstances where we might ask for a family to sign that early implementation, and I'll get to that scenario in just a second. But like 99 out of 100 times, we're saying, we don't want you to sign this. We want you to take this document back. We want to wait the 10 school days, and then you make sure that you feel really comfortable. And then after that, we'll implement this IEP and it will become a finalized IEP. The scenarios that we might ask you to sign the early implementation to waive those 10 days to review your IEP might be like, hey, my kid broke their arm right before standardized statewide assessment, and they're going to need a scribe. And so the test is like in 3 days. And so we need this IEP to go into effect right away so that he can get that accommodation, right? So it's when it's timely, when it's mostly related to accommodations. I will say there's times that we say this kid would really benefit from it, but it's not in their IEP. How can we get this into place before the testing window closes or opens? But outside of that, for the vast majority, again, 99 out of 100 times, we're saying we don't need your signature. It's not that we don't need your permission, but we just want you to have access to your rights and take the time that you need in order to review that IEP. So just some things about transitioning between buildings. And so typically I'm talking about moving from developmental preschool into kindergarten, moving from 5th to 6th grade, and then moving from 8th grade to 9th grade. There are some students, not every student gets a transition. It's not standard practice for every student to have a transition meeting prior to moving to a new building or a new grade level, but some students really require them, and they do need them. Typically, those meetings are happening at their current school building, and team members that are coming from the receiving school will be invited to attend. So if you're at Guilford Elementary and you need a transition meeting going into 6th grade, we would invite the 6th grade team to participate in that transition meeting at Guilford. And we would invite several team members to participate in that. And usually it would be in person if possible, but sometimes virtual is the easiest way to get all the team members together. You'll review the most updated present levels. You'll review standardized statewide assessments with the transition team. You'll look at any additional accommodations that a kiddo might need at that new grade level and with that new building. And then goals will be reviewed. They might be revised just based on student progress and progress monitoring. And then maybe we might change like the method in which data is collected. So if a 5th grade teacher feels like this is the best way for me to collect data for this goal, and a 6th grade teacher is like, no, I really prefer this method, we might change that at one of these meetings. A little bit more on transition meetings. We'll change the services so you can anticipate what those services will look like at the next level. You'll see dates that say 6:30 and 7/1. So I just want to explain what those dates are when you see those. 6:30 is the ending date, and 7/1 then a new service would start. And what this really just does is allows us to capture the fact that the students in 5th grade and is going to receive services at Guilford Elementary, but then the next school year, they're going to receive services at the middle school. And the IEP is written for 365 days. So we can't just say we're going to end on May 30th and start on August 1st. Like we have to, the law says, right, for 365 days. And so this is a date that I just picked and said, let's just say stopping service for the elementary service. We're just going to stop it on 6:30 and we're going to start the new service on 7/1. So that's just a little bit of clarification about those dates if you see that. Hey, Caitlin. Yeah, that's a great question. For our students that are transitioning into a new building, like who are receiving more supportive services in one of our programs, almost always our program students have a transition conference, and almost always we provide an opportunity for new teacher to come and meet student, and for student to come and meet new teacher at the next building. And we do that through what's called extended school year services. So I do have a slide coming up about what that transition might look like with extended school year services. And we would review that at the conference to make sure that we have that service in place for a student who really feel like that transition is going to be tough for them. They're going to need some extra support in order to be successful during that transition. We're going to write that service and we're going to talk about it at that transition meeting. Did I answer your question, Caitlin? Let me know if you have anything to clarify.
No,
Okay,
sorry,
good.
you answered my question.
Okay.
I just wanted to double check, but you said you had a slide coming up, so I jumped the gun.
Yeah, it's no problem. It's no problem. We're also going to review least restrictive environment. So what does that service look like? We'll talk about general considerations, what the student has access to and what they don't. And then we'll update those notes within the IEP. So that's just a little bit of expectation about what would happen at a transition meeting for students transitioning between building levels or programs. Just as a reminder, tours and visits to receiving schools will be scheduled as part of the transition process. Extended school year service, formally or informally within the receiving school, will be scheduled. So we'll make sure that we address that. And also, if your student, let's imagine that your student has a specific learning disability and receives 30 minutes of support and special education for some pull-out time to help with reteaching, and everything else, adaptive skills and all of the kind of other milestones that student doesn't really have challenges with. So we might not schedule a transition meeting for that student. We might just transition that support, that 30 minutes of support, over to the next building. But you as a family can say, hey, I still really would feel more comfortable if I could meet that teacher or see that building or whatever that might be. And that's completely fine for you to request that. It doesn't have to be a full-blown like revision meeting, right? But it can just be, I really want to talk about what this transition is. I'm very nervous about my student moving into this next level, and I'd like to get some support with that process. So again, let's talk a little bit more about extended school year services. It's a service that has a start and end date. It occurs over breaks from a regular school calendar. So typically extended school year services are things that maybe happen over the summer or happen over spring break or winter break. Data collection over the course of the school year is needed. So we want to make sure that we're providing extended school year services for a purpose or for a reason. So we're going to collect that data. One of the biggest things that we look at, is there a need for a transition service written in for extended school year service? We also look at student regression. So if a student has been out for the summer and they come back in August and we really notice like, hey, they're lacking the skills that they had at the end of the last school year, and it's taking them a really long time, a lot longer than it should, for them to regain those skills, we might say, hey, the student needs extended school year service over the summer. They're going to need some therapy in order for them to be prepared for the next school year. So we data collect throughout the year and make sure that we have a good idea of what the student's needs might be for extended school year services. Again, that might be offered as part of the transition case conference process. Sometimes we just write that ESY for 5 hours over the summer so that they can meet the teacher, build rapport, learn a new building, walk the halls, meet their gen ed teachers, whatever that is, we might write that support in for transition. And then again, like I said, services are often written for, a handful of hours, a few hours. ESY service isn't a summer program. Unfortunately, Plainfield doesn't offer summer programming for students. And so it isn't something that, we would provide, for 7 hours a day for the entire length of the summer. It is more like a walk-in service. We're coming to the end here with some final thoughts for you. Really, I mentioned this during the meeting, but I wanted to just reiterate that we are here to work with your family and to help you problem solve. It's really important that you share when you're having problems. We can't fix problems that we don't know about. So if you've shared, again, issues at a building level and you're still not making headway or you haven't reached resolution, reach out to a parent advocate or to myself or to Mr. Toby and just say, this is a problem that I haven't been able to resolve. And we want to provide you with guidance and support during this process. I like to say that we're outside of the box thinkers here, that we try to get creative in our programming and we think big. And we like to say like, yeah, we do that here. Let's try it, right? Like, yes, that's a possibility. Let's look into that some more. And we really value our relationships with our families. And it's so great to see, all of you here listening and learning more about that process. We value the back and forth collaboration that it takes in order for all of our students to be successful at school. So with that, are there any questions or things that I can answer for you that maybe topics or thoughts that I didn't address that you would like some clarification on before we wrap up the evening?
Beth, do you want me to go ahead and stop the recording?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Freely? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Just on